You're listening to Three Kitchens Podcast, hosted by Heather Dyer and Aaron Walker. We're on a mission to inspire home cooks like us to try new recipes and make good food. All right, welcome everyone. We're back with another episode in season 4,
Woo!
Three Kitchens Podcast. I am Heather, here with Aaron.
Very excited.
Very excited. Another reason to be excited, Oktoberfest. Are you excited about Oktoberfest?
I'm just hearing about it now. So,
okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know that I've ever celebrated it. I don't think it's a big thing here, aside from maybe going to local bars. They might have events or something, but I don't know that I've ever actually celebrated. However, I would love to.
I feel like as a child, we would go to the German Canadian Club for Oktoberfest, I'm thinking.
Okay.
But I don't know. I'm going to guess it's Oktoberfest, but let's go with that.
Well, essentially, it's a festival with parades, food, music, and drinking. I'm thinking the drinking is like the biggest. I always just picture like servers in traditional like dirndls and lederhosen and carrying like 17 steins of beer at once with their big strong biceps and like dishing out the beer to everybody. Yeah.
That's my thought of it.
So because it's that time. So 2023 Oktoberfest happens between September 16th and October 3rd. And it is traditionally a festival that took place a 16-day period leading up to the first Sunday in October. So there you go.
Okay. It changes date every year based on...
It changes slightly, yes.
Okay. But it's always leading up to that first Sunday. And is that that's the big day, or?
Good question.
I'm thinking like Stampede, since that's our reference point.
It's
we have
just
a week of drinking, or 10 days of drinking. They have 16.
Yeah, I think it's probably it just goes on and on through that time period. I don't know.
Okay.
So what I do know is that it started when one of their princes, Ludwig, who later became King Ludwig I, married his princess, Therese of Saxe-Hildburghausen.
Say that one more time, Heather.
Therese of Saxe-Hildburghausen. Let's pretend that's right.
That was beautiful.
They got married on October 12th, 1810. And so they had a big party for the citizens of Munich in Bavaria in Germany.
Okay.
And that started the tradition. So then somebody had the idea that we'll do this every year. And over time, I think things have changed. They used to do horse races. Maybe now they just mostly have beer gardens and
big, long picnic tables. Yeah.
Yes. Wouldn't you love to go sometime?
I'm surprised that Oktoberfest happens in September.
Yeah.
For the majority of it. That's one thing that I was not aware of. Okay.
Well, locally, they don't call it Oktoberfest. They call it Weissen. Or Weissen, which I'm probably pronouncing wrong, but I didn't look up how to pronounce it.
We didn't Google that one.
Which I think means fairgrounds. So it's basically like the fair.
Okay.
Yeah. So there you go. And we're going to take advantage of the fact that there is this big festival happening in the world. And I'm going to make a German recipe.
I'm here for it.
I just had to stop and remember how we learned to pronounce it. Spätzle, right? Spätzle. Which I've always pronounced wrong, apparently. Spätzle is like, if you have if you've never had it, it's kind of like a cross between a dumpling and a pasta. A bit more like, I would consider it a bit more like a dumpling and less like a noodle. But it's similar in the fact that it's made with flour, salt, milk, water, eggs. It's kind of like an egg noodle.
Right.
Yeah, I guess it's kind of like an egg noodle.
Oh, you don't make yours with potatoes?
I've never made them before, but the traditional recipe does not have potatoes.
Oh, interesting. I thought it was a potato thing.
No.
Well, I've been saying it wrong and thinking it wrong. So please just tell me. I will throw everything that I thought I could contribute to this out.
I mean, who knows? Maybe there are different ways of making it.
No idea.
Whenever I want to do one of these recipes that I've never made, and it's something that's a tradition of some culture or other,
Mm.
I always try to find a tradition, what they call a traditional recipe.
Right.
And because I want to try to be as authentic as possible so that we can test out and see what we think of one of these recipes.
Yeah.
But who knows? I mean, things change over time. They change depending on who's making it. They change depending on the family's traditional recipe.
Yeah.
This recipe is, so you're going to mix together flour and salt in one bowl.
Okay.
In another bowl, you've got milk, water, and eggs.
Okay.
Then you're going to put your wet into your dry, and you're going to work up a sweat mixing this together, apparently.
This is where your strong German heritage is going to come into value.
Strong German arm. It says to preferably use a wooden spoon with a hole in the middle, and you're going to beat the batter vigorously.
Okay.
Don't hold back. So you want it to be shiny with small bubbles forming when it rests. And that's your batter. It's like very basic. You can tell that it needs something with it because it's kind of like eating a plain egg noodle.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of want a little something with it, right?
Right.
So in the second part of this episode, I'll get into how you form your Spätzle and cook it. But what I'm planning to serve with it is a mushroom sauce. Ooh. So you are sauteing mushrooms, you're adding a bit of tomato paste, white wine, cooking it down, and then beef broth to make a sauce.
Oh, this sounds good.
Yeah, and so while you're cooking your Spätzle, your sauce can be simmering away, and then you're going to put them together. It seems fairly simple. I hope.
It sounds simple, except for we haven't talked about how to make it. I have no clue.
Okay, well, boils in water.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
It's just a bit of kind of hard to describe the way I'm reading the process of cooking it. So I think it'll be easier to explain once I've done it.
Yeah. If we've never done this before, it's probably best to test it out before we make assumptions. Just like we assumed about the recipe and the name pronunciation. We're going to come back with some solid facts.
Exactly. Yeah. I think based on, I'm looking at pictures, I'm going to go find some video.
Okay.
And because based on like photos and the brief description in the recipe, I'm not exactly sure how to tell you how to make Spätzle.
Do you need a ricer? Potato ricer? Oh.
No.
Hey,
just hang on for the second part. And if I'm successful at making these, then I'll be able to tell you. I'm not trying to be cagey here. It's just, I think it's going to be difficult to explain when I haven't done it. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to do it first. We're going to eat them and see if we like them. And then I'll be able to tell you what I did.
I am 100% full of curiosity now. I have no idea what to expect. Anything that I have had or made in the past has flown out the window. I am going to learn fresh.
It's flown out the window because you were pronouncing it wrong and you thought it had potato in it.
Yeah. And when I made it, it had a ricer.
Oh, but wouldn't it make it tiny little bits? A ricer?
Yeah, it was a tiny bits that boiled in water. You like pressed it and cut it and boiled it and...
Okay.
I have no idea now. I don't know what I'm talking about. Just forget. I just don't even listen to what's going on from over here, because my impression is completely different, I think, than what I'm going to end up with.
Well, my German granny was a big fan of the potato ricer. We always had riced everything, riced potatoes, right? So who knows? I don't honestly remember her making Spätzle, but she may have. And maybe I've just forgotten now. My childhood was a long time ago. I may have forgotten. But she definitely had a very well-used ricer in her kitchen. So you never know. Maybe that's one technique.
I love how we're both from very German backgrounds, yet seem to be completely out to left field on this one. So,
well, in my personal defense, I'm 5th generation Canadian. So my German ancestors have been Canadians. Like the memory doesn't go back
Yeah,
all the way
yeah.
probably to some traditions continue, but some things change along the way, right?
Absolutely. Oh, this is going to be so much fun to learn something yet again.
Let's hope I can figure it out and tell everyone how to make it.
We've already learned something new.
We have. You're welcome. Okay, so we are in the middle of fall.
It's comfort food season.
So we've got some fun episodes coming up with comforting fall recipes. Like,
I am making a delicious warm hummus dip and a bread that you can either make on your stovetop or over the fire. This is a delicious snack to enjoy with friends or family over the holidays. Did I mention it's warm and cozy? Sweater weather food.
Oh, sweater weather food.
What are you doing, Heather?
Well, I've got a savory pumpkin recipe that's coming up, and we have a couple of really fun guests that we're chatting with.
Yeah, I think we've got some great people sort of in the works that we're lining up to talk about some different cultures and different food cooking methods that we've never tried or done before. So I'm personally really excited about it. And we've got some good stuff for holidays. Yeah. As we get into holiday season and we think about gathering with family and friends.
We have some really good content leading up to Christmas. So stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribed. Give us some stars and maybe a review while you're in there. That would be really awesome.
Thank you so much for joining us this far, and tell your friends and keep listening as we go forward in fall.
That's right.
Schnitzel and Spätzle.
Jägerspätzle. Mit Schnitzel. Or Jägerschnitzel. The Jäger refers to the mushroom gravy. And I'm told, or I read, that Jäger means hunter, which sort of makes sense to me. If you're a hunter and you're out in the woods, in the old, what do they call the forest there? Black forest?
Yeah.
So if you're hunting, you've got yourself some meat you're cooking over your fire, maybe you could forage some mushrooms. Make
Absolutely.
a nice mushroom gravy. Anyway, something about that just made sense to me, that it's called hunter gravy.
Yeah. I like that. I think that all goes together well.
Yeah. So I made the Spätzle, and then I made a little chicken schnitzel just because we were having that for dinner, and I was like, well, Erin needs to have this too, so passed some on to you as well. That's just a little bonus piece.
It was really good. You delivered me a whole meal. I was not expecting that when I got home because you delivered it to my husband.
I'm glad it survived. Because he was like, oh, is this like a whole meal? He's like, oh, there's lots in here. Like, and it's still warm. Can I just, and I was like, don't eat it. Please don't eat it.
Heather told me I can't eat what she dropped off. That was his text or something like that.
Yeah, I'm like, well, you have to
lines.
wait. Like, wait for Erin to share with you. Don't just dig in.
We kept it and we split it actually for lunch the next day.
Oh, nice.
That was a wonderful treat. I think he kind of gets why this job is so awesome.
With the perks. We got so many perks. And our families always get to enjoy for no work.
Zero complaints. Come on.
Okay, so how do you make Spätzle?
Tell me about this process, because I looked at those little things and I was like, what did you do to make
How
this?
did you make these? Okay, so as it turns out, I think your idea to use a ricer actually would work. Because there are such modern tools as a Spätzle maker, Spätzle tool. I don't know what you call it exactly, but it looks like a flat cheese grater. You know the kind.
Okay.
It sits flat with kind of the bigger holes. And then there's sort of like a little cup that's attached to the top, and you put your batter into it and you slide it back and forth across, and it goes through the little holes and falls into the water to boil.
Right.
Obviously, I do not have such a thing, and I'm not going to go out and try and buy one just for this. No. But I can see how it would really speed up the process. I also tried and quickly abandoned a technique that I saw somebody doing when I looked up videos, and that was to use a colander, like a metal colander with bigger holes.
Okay.
And you're kind of using the back of a spoon and pushing it back and forth across those holes so that it drips through. That's what I did the first. I made like real tiny ones. You may have got a few of those little itty bitty guys in your... And I was like, it was so much work to get it to go through, and I thought, and I was looking underneath, like, these are teeny tiny, and the Spätzle that I've ever eaten is like a bit like almost like a more of a noodle looking thing, not these little bits.
Yeah,
Right?
I was gonna say that's more rice-like, and I would describe this as more like rotini, but like the twisty
Odd
ones.
shapes. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So that's what I was looking for. So I did a scoop, put it through the colander, and I was like, no, this is so hard to do. And I would just give you another tip. This stuff, when it's dry, really hard to clean off of stuff. It sticks.
Oh, you can build a house out of it.
Yeah, I pull it out later to wash it, and I had to leave it soaking in the sink for a while because
Oh,
it's like
dang.
glue. So stuck. Let me tell you what goes into the batter, then I'll tell you the method.
Okay.
So 2.5 cups of flour, half a teaspoon of salt, a third a cup of water, a third a cup of milk, and 3 eggs. I've seen various different versions. Some of them don't have any water, it's just all milk. One of the suggestions I saw was to add your eggs first, then add your milk a little at a time until you get the batter consistency you want, because you may need a little less or you may need a little more. And if you just dump all that wet stuff in at once and mix it up,
Right.
you can't take out, right? So
What kind of consistency are you looking for?
so
in
you're
this?
looking for almost like a that's not a cookie dough, but it's not a pancake batter. It's like something in between. Like if you lift your spoon, it's going to very slowly sort of plop down off the spoon. Like it's
Okay, so it's a
thick,
pretty thick.
but not runny, it's not a dough. It's
Right.
still a batter.
It does not hold its shape,
No.
but it doesn't run easily.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. So you've mixed up your batter.
Okay.
It does take a bit of work with a spoon. I did not have a wooden spoon with a hole in the middle, like was suggested.
Oh, right.
I don't own such a thing. So I used a spatula. You've beaten that all up. You let it rest for like half an hour. Just throw a tea towel over the bowl, let it rest. And then I'm going to try to describe this. You've got a big pot of boiling water. It doesn't need to be rolling boil, but it needs to be bubbling. So it's boiling. Salt that really well because that's going to add flavor to your spätzle. And put a scoop of your batter onto a wooden, like a cutting board. Back in the day, they would have had a spätzle board, I believe. Special board for us, which is smaller. I had my fairly big cutting board and I had to hold it up there against the pot. So you're kind of perching it on the edge of your pot.
Okay.
And you've got a scoop of batter, and then you use a fairly long knife, like a bread knife, dip it into the water to get it hot, and then you're going to kind of scoop a bit of batter toward the pot and smooth it out so you've got kind of a thin layer. And then with the edge of the knife, you're just sort of pushing it off the edge of the board into the water.
Okay, I can picture this now.
Yeah, you're sort of taking it from the batter, the pile.
Right, and so the length of your batter is the length of your spätzle as it comes off and falls into the water and it cooks up.
So I had like a large serving spoon, and I just took a scoop like that and put it on my board, and then I used a knife to smooth it out, scoop off a little bit. The challenge with it is that it cooks super fast. It's like a gnocchi where it's as soon as it's done, it pops up.
It's a floats.
Yeah. And then you've got to get your slotted spoon or mesh spoon or whatever and scoop it out.
Right.
And so you can't, I couldn't get through like a whole spoon of batter in one pot, like in one go.
Yeah.
Maybe if you get really good at it. Also, it sticks to your knife, so you have to keep dipping it in the boiling water and kind of loosen up a little bit. And like,
this sounds pretty technique heavy.
It's a bit of a process, but you know what? Like, once I got into it, I found that it was actually quite easy, and it was a lot less work than trying to push it through a colander. So it's not really that bad once you kind of do it a few times and get the hang of it. You just have to keep putting the board down, scoop out your gnocchi, and then you've got next to it, you've got a skillet with butter. You're putting your spätzle right into a skillet with melted butter, and you fry it up just a little bit, and then it's done. So then from there, you're scooping it out into a bowl or whatever, and then you're back to your board at the pot.
This sounds like the perfect two-person thing. Somebody on the board, another person with the scoop and the fry. That sounds like you would get this moving through quickly.
Yeah, or it just takes you a while, that's all. And it's okay. I mean, I managed it. It was a bit, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it took some time for sure,
Yeah.
but you can make it the day before or even 2 days
Mm-hmm.
ahead because it keeps well if you just put it into a
It
container or
does.
cover it in the fridge. It'll
Yeah.
keep well for a couple of days at least, 2, 3 days,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can just reheat it. So make it in advance. What I ended up doing was spending the entire afternoon
Yeah.
in the kitchen. It was one of those days because I was making the spätzle. Then I made the mushroom gravy, which I'll get into in a minute. Then I made the schnitzel once it was like dinner time, and I was so tired by the end of all of it.
Yeah.
Okay, one other thing to keep in mind with the spätzle is that because if it takes you the amount of time it took me, your water's going to boil down over time. You may need to top up that water and add a bit more salt and allow it to come to a boil again. I had to do that once or twice because my water evaporated as it was boiling all this time.
That happens to me often too. And so I've learned now I put a kettle of water on so that the water is already almost boiling, so it doesn't take too much longer to bring it back up to temperature again.
Oh, that's a good point. Good idea. Okay, for the gravy.
We really liked the mushrooms in it. It was very mushroomy. So if you don't like mushrooms, I would say
don't make this.
Don't make this. But like if you like mushrooms, like it had a very, did you use different mushrooms or something?
This is all about the mushroom. That's exactly what it is. It is, you've got 1/4 cup finely chopped onion, 2 cloves of minced garlic, 1 pound of button mushrooms sliced,
Okay.
half a teaspoon of dried thyme, salt and pepper, half a tablespoon of tomato paste, and 1/4 cup of white wine or more broth if you don't have the white wine, but I highly recommend the white wine or cooking sherry if that's what you've got. 2 cups of beef broth, and then if you want to make it creamy, you could add heavy cream at the end, which I did not. So yeah, you're starting out with a pound of mushrooms.
That's a lot of mushrooms.
Yes. So I bought a pound of the white button mushrooms and a pound of the brown cremini mushrooms. When you got that many mushrooms, it takes a while to clean them. You know how you kind of like wipe them all off with a damp paper towel, clean the outside of them and get them all like, takes a long time. And it's so messy. You end up with all the bits of stuff and like, all right, so you're gonna put all those mushrooms, if they fit, get a big, it's like a deeper non-stick fry pan. You know, when you can put a glass lid on, you know, those kind.
Right, like almost a Dutch oven sized.
Yeah, and it's almost like a wok.
Yeah.
I couldn't fit quite all the mushrooms in it. And so I had a smaller skillet still on the stove. Yeah. So I put the rest of the mushrooms that didn't fit in there, I just put them in there to kind of start softening them. And as they cook down a little bit, then I put the rest of the mushrooms in. And anyway.
Ah, perfect. That's a good way to do it.
Yeah, you can figure this out.
It's amazing how much the mushrooms decrease in size.
Oh, it's crazy.
As you cook them. Like I'm always like, oh, geez, I think this is too much. And then I'm always like, oh, I could have had more of that.
I mean, this does make quite a lot of gravy with a lot of mushrooms in it. It looks like a lot because it is a lot. So you've got melted butter in your pan, the onion, the garlic, and the mushrooms. And you cook those mushrooms down about 10 minutes until they're softened. Then you're going to reduce the heat to medium, put your seasoning and flour over top of the mushroom and stir that in. So that was dried thyme, salt and pepper, and flour. Stir in your tomato paste and the white wine. Scrape any bits if there's anything stuck in the pan. And then add your beef broth. Stir it, bring it to a boil, and then reduce to simmer and cook for about 15 minutes until you've got a thickened gravy.
Okay.
And I found that I needed to add a little more. I put just a little more flour and water in a little jar and shook it up and put that in. I used a little bit more. And then you can finish with cream if that's what you're using. I did not. Yeah, I don't think you need it.
I don't think so.
That's optional.
Yeah.
Okay, and then if you've never made a schnitzel, schnitzel is a breaded and fried, very thin piece of meat. Traditional, you may have heard of a Wiener Schnitzel, which is veal. You could also make it with pork. I made this with chicken because I had chicken breasts. Yeah, so put it in seasoned flour, then egg, then breadcrumbs. And I happened to have Italian seasoned breadcrumbs.
Ooh,
and then you fry it. The trick with the frying, you fry it in a mixture of like oil and butter. The trick is, that I have found, is making sure that when you flip it, there's still a good amount of oil or fat in the pan. If it's kind of soaked up on the one side, it's nice and brown, you turn it over, it's going to burn.
That's a good tip.
Because you don't have enough fat still in the pan. So sometimes you need to, as it's cooking, add a little extra oil or butter to maybe the other side of the pan, and then when you flip it, you've got enough.
I find that those breadcrumbs always suck up the oil, and I have to re-add it every time.
Yeah, and that's it. It doesn't take long because if your meat's super thin, just cook it until it's nice and brown and crispy, and you're good to go. And then you put your mushroom gravy over everything.
I like making that because it's a quick way to cook up the meat. If you need to throw together a meal quickly, if you've got these things ready to go, it is so fast.
And you can make it go a little farther. If you only have 2 pork chops back in the freezer, but you've got 4 of you, you can make schnitzel because you pounded it flat.
Exactly.
And you don't feel like you're missing out on half the pork chop.
Exactly. It's nice and big, so it fools your eye into the fact that you're eating more. And you're frying it, so you're probably getting the same amount of calories.
That's true.
It always makes it so nice and tender, and I liked it with the chicken. It inspired me to cut and flatten my chicken breasts the other night when I went to barbecue them, because I was like, oh yeah, that cooks it faster. So I just did a quick little marinade on them, and then 3 minutes aside and done.
Yeah, it is really quick.
Especially if a chicken breast really sucks out that moisture. So the quicker you can cook it, I feel like the juicier it is.
Yeah, always cut them in half, even if you don't pound them out. Cut them in half, because a fat chicken breast takes too long to cook, and by the time it's done, it's dry. So what'd you think of this Spätzle? Is it what you were expecting it to be?
It's totally what I was expecting it to be. I've had it before with a potato mixture, but it was really good. I like that you can make this ahead of time. We got this. We popped it overnight in the fridge, quickly heated it up the next day. It was so good. It doesn't stick together or get clumpy. It's really, it's a forgiving kind of it's like a little dumpling.
Yeah.
It's like gnocchi's younger, smaller friend.
Yeah. It's similar. I'd say it's kind of similar texture. It's just a different kind of size and shape.
I would make this and then fry up a good wiener or a hot sausage, and then pop this in a lunch kit, because you can eat this hot or cold. This is... This is a good thing to have, if you make a big batch.
I think traditionally it's a side, it's a starch on your plate, much like if you were to just have some noodles or whatever. But I think you could eat it the same way you would eat noodles, put it into a pasta salad, or have it with roasted veggies and just toss it all together. I don't know. I think there's lots of ways you could eat it. It's a very basic.
Yeah, a little bit of gravy is good with it. This is a fun side. I think I might add this to whatever I make for Thanksgiving, because it's nice and make aheadable, and anything you can make ahead for Thanksgiving, so that you just have to heat it up and go. Yeah, I like this.
Yeah, good point. And you could just then put it in a casserole dish.
Yeah.
With some butter and whatever, and then, because you're gonna have gravy,
make a fresh sauce or gravy that goes with it. Done. Yum.
Yum, yum.
I'm really glad that you tried this out and that you taught us how to pronounce it properly. And now for the fine print. Join us over on the socials: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and on our website, threekitchenspodcast.com. Remember, when you follow, subscribe, and review, it helps more people find us. Thank you so much for listening.
Mitspitz. Do not use this.
Mitspitz.